Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the QuickBooks Quick Hits series. My name is Brittany. I am a supervisor here in the closely held business group at SVA. I'm a QuickBooks Pro Advisor on levels 1 and 2. I also have my certification for the payroll side of QuickBooks. But today we're going to talk about 1099s, how to properly track and collect your information within QuickBooks. If you choose to file your 1099s within QuickBooks, how to get started to do so. I'm kind of limited on what I can show you in the sample file, but I'll walk you through as much as I can. And as always, if you have any questions throughout the program, let me know or reach out to your SVA representative and they can get you in contact with me. Especially as you get closer to the end of the year, you want to be doing this stuff now. That way, come January, you're not rushing to try to get everything done. Before I jump into the sample company, I just wanted to highlight our next webinar on December 9th, where I'm going to go over some year-end payroll tips and tricks. Most importantly, how to add shareholder health insurance in QuickBooks. I think that's probably one of my most frequently asked questions is how to correctly get that in QuickBooks for your W-2s. Without further ado, okay. Okay, so finally the sample company has been updated to the new version of QuickBooks. This should match what everybody sees now when they log into QuickBooks. Every day. So it brings you right to your dashboard. But before we walk through anything, just a few reminders on 1099s. Most common forms that you're going to file are the 1099 NEC and the 1099 miscellaneous. You might be required to file a 1099 interest or dividend, depending on your transaction type, but check with your CPA if this applies to you, and then we can work through how you would do it in QuickBooks. But specifically today, I'm going to focus on the NEC and the miscellaneous for rent. So the 1099 NEC is paying a non-employee or an independent contractor, freelancer, or other service provider $600 or more for services provided in the course of your business. You only need to report payments that were paid check, direct deposit, or cash. So all credit card, third-party payments, Venmo, PayPal, those are all going to get reported on a separate form called the 1099K. So you don't need to include those when you're doing or gathering your 1099 information. So keeping in mind due dates, so the 1099 NEC needs to be sent to the recipient and filed by February 2nd of 2026. Typically, you're looking at the 31st of January, but that falls on I think it falls on a weekend day, either Saturday or Sunday. I'm not sure which day. So it defaults to the closest day after. Your 1099 miscellaneous, which mostly used for rent. You might also be using it for royalties, which is $10 or above, but we'll focus today only on the rent part. This is going to need to be filed by March 31st, but furnished to the recipient by December or January 31st or February 2nd. Also, keep in mind that if you are filing 1099s and you have 10 or more, you are required to e-file your forms. So keep that in mind as you work on your 1099s. If you're just doing a couple, you might be able to save some money and print them out of the system and mail them in, but 10 or more, you have to e-file. All right, so jumping into the 1099s, you're going to first come to this contractor screen. Give my system a second to load. So let's quickly talk pricing. If you're using QuickBooks Payroll Core, this is something that's going to be roped into your subscription. But if you are not using QuickBooks Payroll, you can opt into something called just the QuickBooks Contractor. So the introductory pricing, I think for 3 months is half off. So it's going to be $7.50, and then it'll bump up to $15 a month. And you can pay contractors, you can do next day direct deposit, and you can e-file all your 1099s through the contractor. It also comes with the self-setup portal. So, you can send your contractor, whoever you're paying, an email, and they can kind of set up their own little portal with their EIN and their address and entity type, which will be important. So this includes up to 20 contractors for payment. Anything over is an additional $2. Like I said, if you're using QuickBooks Payment Core, that's roped into your subscription, probably subject to some additional fees. I don't know what they are off the top of my head. I would assume they're pretty close to the contractor version, but if you reach out to me, I can get you exact numbers. So within QuickBooks doing 1099s, you have two options. So I'm just quickly going to go to this nice little advertising screen. You will see this if you aren't set up already. So you have two options. You can go the route where QuickBooks preps all your 1099s and you basically do nothing but make sure that your vendors are entered and you check the box for tracking 1099s. Or you can prep your own and just use QuickBooks to e-file it. I think the process itself is pretty easy, and there are some substantial price differences. Like, I mean, $2.99 a form instead of $10 a form if you're prepping your own via QuickBooks. So I, I think that hopefully we could help you even get to a place where you would feel comfortable prepping your own because yeah, I think the most important things are, you want to be able to e-file and you want to e-file federal and state. And then you want to be sure that your recipients are getting a copy. All three of those things are included with, Prep with QuickBooks Help. So Prep My Own via QuickBooks. One thing I want to point out is I would venture to say most of us who are here today, we're filing in the state of Wisconsin. Thankfully, that is one of the states that's included in the 1099 filings. But if you have a recipient who is not in Wisconsin, it is worth checking this this helpful chart to see if the state is on there. So like Maryland is a no, it's not supported. Let's see. Minnesota's a no, Nebraska's a no. So some states you don't have the capability through here to do it. You'll have to figure out another way. So Wisconsin, thankfully, is a yes for both, which makes it really, really easy. One last thing I'll point out about pricing is you don't pay until you file, which is nice. So you don't have to worry about as you go through this screen, like, let me go back in here. Exit out of here. So if you are just, let's say you just want to gather your 1099 information, you can click on this view all contractor payments and it doesn't cost anything to be able to track everything and view it, even to kind of go through the motions to see if you have all the information. You don't pay for anything until you actually file the forms. But just for reference, a few other like e-file options. SVA can always assist, so reach out to your representative if you're interested in that. You can also use IRS Fire or IRIS, which is the information return intake system. But in order to use either one of those, you're going to need a TCC, which is a transmitter control code. So this is an application. You'll have to apply for this through the IRS. It can take a while, so don't wait until January. You'll want to do that now to get it in time so that you can use it. But that's completely free. You just upload your 1099s. For Wisconsin, you can upload all your 1099s through your My Tax portal or through the file transfer service. So yeah, just wanted to point those out if you're not interested in using QuickBooks. But going back into QuickBooks, so you're going to want to go through your file just to make sure that you have all of your vendors tagged for 1099s. So one way I like to do it, I think is probably the best way, is kind of going through your P&L and looking for accounts that maybe you would put a independent contractor in, like accounting if you're paying a bookkeeper or an individual for, some bookkeeping services. Maybe they're not a corporation. You'd want to issue them a 1099 if you paid them over $600 or more, or if you're paying, you're a local handyman and you paid him for repairs, that would be one that I would look for to check. So I like to go through my profit and loss report. And this is if you're starting for the first time. If you already have things tracked in QuickBooks, there's a different report you can run, and I'll show you what that report looks like. But let's say like accounting. So who did I pay this year for accounting services? Wait for QuickBooks to load. I'm sorry, I'm having a slight lag on my end. Okay, so who did I pay this year for accounting services? I know who's in here, but for dramatic effect, I wanted to wait for the screen to pull up. But fortunately, this is some of what I've been running into. I don't know about you guys. I've been running into this a lot with the updated of QuickBooks. It's been a little slow. So I paid Robertson and Associates this year. We're just gonna say we paid them over $600. So I'm gonna go I'm going to go into my vendors app. Mm, Give it a second to load. I'm just going this way. I'm going to go into my vendors and I'm going to find Robertson and Associates through my vendors. And I'm just going to make sure that I have all of the right information in here. So best practice is anytime you start working with a new vendor, you should immediately be sending them a blank W-9 to fill out. So you should be getting this information throughout the year instead of waiting till the end of the year because it's just easier this way on, yourself. If you're waiting till January trying to, get all of this information, it can be a little stressful. So if you're doing it, throughout the year, you're obtaining the W-9, saving it, attaching it to the vendor profile in QuickBooks, you're just saving yourself a bunch of work. So making sure the name and the is updated, the address is updated, making sure that you have the EIN number in there. I'm going to enter one really quick. And then checking this track payments for 1099. So this is important because this is how you'll group your vendors under that contractor screen. So I'm going to hit save and I'm going to go back to contractors. So they'll show up here now, which is what you want. Even if you're not using this screen, the best report to run in QuickBooks if you're looking to consolidate, compile all your 1099 payment information is this view all contractor payments. I'm going to show you another report too before we run out of time. I'm going to do this here of a report that I think a lot of clients believe this is the right report to get 1099 information. This is going to be the best one because you can export it into Excel, total it up, and it'll even tell you the category on here too. So I don't know why it's not now, but typically it does. You'll know if it's, legal, if it's a legal fee, or if it's, repairs and maintenance, like what form it goes on. If it's rent, you'll know it'll say rent. So you have to use a 1099 miscellaneous form. But there's one report that a lot of clients think, oh, this is the report where I'd get all my 1099 information. So it's this 1099 transaction detail report that I'm going to pull it up. There's a small disclaimer on the bottom of this report that I think is really important because this only works if the account in QuickBooks is set up for 1099 tracking. So if you're using the contractors feature and you have gone through the process and, rent is set up to, track for 1099s, this report would work. But most of the time you're going to run this report and make sure you're always using the cash basis reports because that's how you're going to total up your 1099s. But see, like nothing comes up, even if I do for this year, nothing comes up for my 1099s. So there's this note down here. The report will pull transactions that have been mapped to a box when preparing the 1099 forms. To map transactions to boxes, go to payroll contractors and click on prepare 1099s. The second step of the 1099 preparation will let you map your accounts to the 1099 boxes. So just because you are checking that a contractor needs to be tracked for 1099, they're not going to show up on this report. You're going to want to use that contractor's report within the app. So expenses, contractors, you're going to want to use this one. Let me go back here and see if it loads. I'll go back. Okay. So yeah, view all contractor payments. Um, let's say it's the end of the year. You've done a great job throughout the year. You've gotten all your W-9s, everything's tracked. Everyone who shows up here should show up here. You're going to want to click on this, prepare 1099. So it's going to take me back to the advertisement. But I will say there's this nice little video on here. If you've never done it before, I would take a second, watch this, see how it works. It's really helpful since I can't all the way show you everything within these final steps, but um, this is as far as I can go. So this is where you're gonna, update your information, update your EIN, and then you'll kind of go through the rest of the motions, follow the prompts. Um, there will be little, help buttons if you run into any issues, or as you can always call SVA, you can always call me, and I can help walk you through it. But yeah, that's kind of the gist of everything for 1099s in QuickBooks. You're just going to want to make sure that you're going through your file, tagging anyone who's going to need a 1099 at the end of the year, and then making sure you have the W-9s, checking the box so that you can run reports, and whether you're doing them outside the system or you're doing them within QuickBooks, this will kind of help you prepare yourself so that you're going to be ready and that you're not, scrambling at the end of the year. Anyways, that's all I have for everyone today. I really appreciate everyone's time, and yeah, have a great rest of your week.